Right, we will call the committee meeting to order. I want to thank everybody for being here. I'll give my opening remarks, and then Senator Welsh, who's on his way, will give his remarks. Thank you for being here for the hearing entitled Ending Illegal DEI Discrimination and Preferences, Enforcing Our Civil Rights Laws. This is the third hearing of this Judiciary Committee's Subcommittee on the Constitution, which I chair alongside Ranking Member Peter Welsh from the great state of Vermont. I want to thank the witnesses who are here today from the Department of Justice for being accommodating. And the first hearing this Congress involving a Senate-confirmed member of the Department of Justice. Ranking Member Welsh requested back in April we hold a hearing with Assistant Attorney General Dillon just a couple weeks before or after she was confirmed. Now that she's passed the 100-day mark, I'm so grateful that she's agreed to come testify about her historic successes so far in the important work she's doing on today's topic. Let me begin with a hard but necessary truth. For at least the last decade, America's civil rights laws have been used not to prohibit discrimination, but to institutionalize it. The modern civil rights regime, both inside and outside of government, has been wielded like a weapon, not to safeguard the equal rights of all citizens, but to engineer a radical new social order built upon the deliberate dispossession of huge swaths of our country. Rather than protecting the constitutional order of the founders, it has become the vanguard of a revolution in the political, legal, social, and even moral underpinnings of American society.
The hearing is the third session of the Senate Judiciary Subcommittee on the Constitution, with Senator Peter Welsh as the ranking member. The session is focused on ending illegal DEI discrimination and preferences and enforcing civil rights laws. The Department of Justice's Assistant Attorney General, Harriet Dillon, is testifying after being confirmed earlier this year, providing insight into the department's actions. The opening speaker criticizes DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, calling it a discriminatory ideology that has been institutionalized in American society.
The revolution has gone by many names: affirmative action, anti-racism, social justice. Today, it most commonly is referred to as diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI. But whatever the name is, in every instance, it amounts to the same thing: a new racial caste system sanctioned and enforced by the administrative state. Americans never voted for any of this. It slunk in through the back door, cloaked in bureaucratic doublespeak and soothing euphemisms. But today, it has wrapped itself around all the great institutions of American life: our schools, our businesses, our government, and even our armed forces. The bureaucracies of this new system are the diversity officers, the human rights commissioners, the HR managers, and select members of the groups at the top of the victim hierarchy. The victims are the rest of America, the smart, working-class kid who can't get a scholarship because of his skin color, the Christian business owner targeted and persecuted for his faith, the patriotic young West Point cadets subjected to mandatory struggle sessions for their toxic masculinity. DEI isn't just illegal, it's a fraudulent and cynical ideology, from top to bottom, built on layers of lies. It's not about diversity, it's about discrimination, a sustained campaign of collective punishment wrapped in the rhetoric of social justice. It's not about equity, it's about retribution. The advocates of DEI don't actually want to level the playing field. They aren't interested in equality under the law. Their entire mission is to elevate members of certain groups over members of other groups and remake America in their own image. And finally, it's not about inclusion. It's about exclusion of the competent, the qualified, the meritorious, and those people are members of the wrong race or sex. Over the course of the past few decades, these poisonous and illegal doctrines have transformed our institutions. In our universities, DEI has meant the abolishment of merit. It has meant the open, proud rejection of excellence and achievement in favor of racial quotas. Even now, after the Supreme Court ruled that race-based admissions are illegal in Students for Fair Admissions versus Harvard, the universities continue to flout the law, rebranding their quotas, cloak them in essay prompts and hiring practices and policies, but keeping the racial spoils system intact. At Harvard, at Princeton, at Stanford, the share of unrepresented minority groups did not meaningfully change after the Supreme Court's ruling, and in some cases increased despite huge disparities in test scores and academic preparation. Just earlier today, DEI administrators at the University of Tennessee and Vanderbilt were recorded gleefully discussing how they sidestepped DEI crackdowns by simply rebranding these initiatives. In the corporate world, DEI has had the same effect. It has meant hiring and promotion not on the basis of competence, but on the basis of race and sex. A world where one's place in the new caste system determines who rises and who falls. It has meant diversity fellowships that offer double pay, which white men need not apply. The effect of these policies has been even more extreme than many might guess. In the year after the Black Lives Matter protest, Bloomberg reported, the S&P 100 added more than 300,000 jobs. 94% went to people of color. 94%. In many blue states, DEI is now entrenched at every level of government decision-making. At the federal level, it has produced a vast universe of civil service preferences, taxpayer-funded minority-only grants, and open racial discrimination in contracting. Under the Biden administration, farmers in the Midwest were told they couldn't get debt relief. Restaurants were deemed ineligible for small business grants, and small business owners were barred from lucrative federal contracts, all for the crime of being too male or too white. Much of this took place in the wake of COVID, where years of rolling lockdowns decimated many small businesses and drove countless others to the brink. In the face of all that, the Biden administration redistributed billions of dollars from taxpayers to members of what they deemed to be socially disadvantaged groups, while leaving the rest of America out in the cold. The rest of America, to be clear, refers to the majority of people in this country, our fellow citizens, brothers, sisters, mothers, and fathers, business owners and shift workers, good people who live honestly, work hard, pay their taxes, and expect only a basic standard of fairness from their government in return. Americans didn't vote for this. Instead, they voted for the 14th Amendment and our numerous civil rights laws that mandate equal protection under the law, not remedial power and monetary redistribution. Let me be even more clear. The only just and legitimate interpretation of our civil rights laws is what their text plainly demands: equal treatment under the law. That means an end to racial preferences, an end to double standards, an end to legal fictions like disparate impact, which treats differences in group outcomes as evidence of group discrimination, a totalitarian logic that demands a total leveling of society to achieve its ends. Ensuring perfectly equal outcomes between groups across race, sex, and every other protected characteristic would require a level of Marxist social engineering that would make Stalinist Russia look like a libertarian paradise, and it would still fail. Our civil rights laws and Reconstruction amendments were created to end a racial caste system, not perpetuate it. We must be used, based on the plain and unambiguous language and the meaning of the text, to dismantle a system to restore equal treatment under the law. That means prosecuting illegal racial preferences and quotas wherever they exist, in colleges, in boardrooms, in state bureaucracies, and in the offices of the federal government itself. It means demanding that every entity receiving federal funds comply to the letter with the mandates of the law. Under President Trump, the Department of Justice is finally doing just that. Under the leadership of people like Harmeet Dillon, who's here today, this Justice Department has moved boldly to reassert the principle that civil rights belong to all American citizens, not just a select and favored few. The entire Trump administration has embarked on a shock and awe offensive against the DEI infrastructure. In just the first 6 months, they have launched a major civil rights investigation into the University of California's system for its race and sex-based hiring practices and quotas. They opened active investigations into 45 universities, including Ivy League schools like Harvard and Columbia, for using illegal racial preferences in student fellowships, academic programs, and admission practices. They ended the doctrine of disparate impact in federal enforcement of civil rights law. They revoked decades-old executive orders that had embedded affirmative action into the DNA of the federal government and terminated all DEI positions and offices across the federal bureaucracy. They filed a major court challenge to discriminatory federal programs that had excluded thousands of workers and small businesses from hundreds of billions of dollars in government contracts. They launched a civil rights investigation into the Harvard Law Review for discriminating on the basis of race in article and editorial board selection, and threatened to strip the accreditation of Harvard and Columbia if they failed to comply with federal civil rights law. They began pursuing Title VII enforcement actions against law firms that openly advertised diversity fellowships for which white men could not apply, programs that are plainly illegal under federal law. These actions are just the beginning, but they represent, at long last, an attempt by the American government to apply our civil rights laws as they were actually written. For too long, we allowed the civil rights apparatus to be weaponized against the very rights it was supposed to protect. For too long, the people who ran our government looked the other way, or worse, actively partnered with those who were engaged in outright racial discrimination. Those days are over. Today's hearing is about reaffirming a simple but radical truth: that all Americans are entitled to equal protection of our laws, and that no Americans should be treated as second-class citizens in their own country. As Chief Justice Roberts so eloquently put it, the way to stop discrimination on the basis of race is to stop discriminating on the basis of race. The same goes for every protected class under our civil rights laws. The Trump administration has done extraordinary work in beginning the long, difficult task of restoring this principle in the conduct of our government. This subcommittee is going to do the necessary work to ensure we do everything in our power to finish that job. With that, I'd like to thank our witnesses for being here. I look forward to your testimony and turn it over to my friend Peter Welsh from the great state of Vermont.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I really appreciate you calling this hearing.
The Speaker argues that DEI has been used not to prohibit discrimination, but to create a racial caste system, undermining the civil rights of all citizens. DEI policies, according to the Speaker, undermine merit by prioritizing race and sex over competence in educational and corporate environments. Despite the Supreme Court ruling on race-based admissions, many universities are allegedly circumventing the decision by rebranding their DEI initiatives, maintaining racial quotas. The Speaker highlights how DEI has led to preferential hiring and promotion policies based on race and sex, not merit, especially in the aftermath of Black Lives Matter protests. Under the Biden administration, various federal programs have allegedly discriminated against white and male individuals, such as denying debt relief or small business grants. The Speaker praises the Trump administration for actively investigating and challenging DEI-related practices across universities, law firms, and federal agencies, aiming to restore equal protection under the law for all Americans.